For thousands of years, the galaxy had forgotten the name human. Their cities, their songs, their courage, all had turned into stories told to scare children or inspire soldiers. To most alien races, humans were just an old legend, a violent species that burned their own world and vanished into dust. No one had seen a living human for over 900 years. They were history. They were gone. On a quiet night near the Delta Rim, a patrol ship belonging to the Zorath Empire drifted through space. Its scanners hummed softly, searching for pirates or smugglers. The crew was bored. Space was silent, empty, and endless until the radar beeped once. Then again, and again. The ship's captain, an old reptilian named Karath, leaned over the console. "Identify the signal," he ordered. The young operator frowned, his claws tapping the screen nervously. "It's strange, sir." "The signal. It matches an ancient code. It's human." The entire bridge went silent. The captain's scales turned pale. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Humans are extinct." But the signal continued to pulse, steady, strong, and growing closer. The crew exchanged nervous looks. Some laughed uneasily, saying it must be an echo from a forgotten probe. Others whispered that ghosts of humans were returning. The captain didn't believe in ghosts, but fear crept into his voice as he ordered the ship to follow the signal. Hours later, they reached the source, an empty region of space where no planet or station existed. Yet the signal was right there in front of them. A bright blue light flickered in the dark. Then the stars themselves seemed to twist and bend. The navigator gasped. "Sir, something's coming through warp!" Every alarm in the ship screamed at once. The crew watched in horror as space tore open like a wound, and from the glowing rift a shape began to emerge. Not one, but many. Dark metallic hulls, massive engines, sharp wings like blades, ships, dozens of them. No alien symbol marked their surface. Only a faded blue circle with white stars and one word written in ancient human language. Earth. The captain tried to speak, but his voice trembled. "Send a message, anyone. Tell the council what we've seen." But before the transmission could leave the ship, a human voice spoke through their speakers. Calm, cold, and mechanical. "Unknown vessel detected. This sector is under Terran control. Power down your engines." No one moved. They couldn't. The sound of a human voice after 9 centuries was like hearing a ghost speak from the grave. The captain managed to whisper, "Identify yourself." There was silence. Then the reply came. "Humanity." Moments later, the patrol ship vanished from the scanners of the Zorath Empire. Only a single transmission reached the nearest outpost. A short recording of static and that single terrifying word. The analysts who listened to it dismissed it as false data at first until they saw the energy reading attached to it. A warp signature no known alien ship could produce. It was powerful, old, and unmistakably human. Within days, rumors spread across the galaxy. Some said it was a human ghost fleet. Others said Earth had survived and was sending a warning. But one message appeared again and again across intercepted frequencies, a simple text in ancient human code. "We remember." And somewhere deep beyond the stars, thousands of ships continued to move, silent, disciplined, and unstoppable. Humanity had returned, and this time the galaxy would never forget them again. The Galactic Council gathered in the Grand Chamber, its silver walls glowing softly under the lights of 7 suns. Every major alien species had a representative there. Reptilians, insectoids, avians, and even the cold-blooded Circans who rarely left their icy moons. The tension was thick. The rumor had already reached them. A human signal detected near the Delta Rim, confirmed by energy readings no one could explain. Ambassador Valar of the Vorkan Empire slammed his fist on the table. "This is a trick! Some rebel group is faking ancient codes to cause panic." His voice echoed, but no one replied. They all remembered what humans were capable of. Even after centuries, the memory of the Terran Wars still haunted them. The humans who fought until their last breath, who destroyed fleets 3 times larger, who refused to surrender even when their world burned. An old general named Zarn stood slowly. He had fought in the last human conflict over 900 years ago. His skin was covered in scars that never healed properly. "I saw their kind," he said, his deep voice trembling. "They don't bluff. If a human signal has returned, then they are coming." The chamber fell into silence. For the first time in centuries, fear crept into the hearts of powerful beings who once ruled the galaxy without challenge. Reports arrived one after another, patrol ships disappearing without a trace, entire outposts offline, no wreckage, no distress calls, only statics on and the same haunting word left in the comms. Remember, the Council ordered full investigation. Fleets were deployed to scan the sectors where the signal had appeared. Hundreds of ships spread out like a net through the blackness of space, but none of them returned. On the third day, the Council's main communication tower picked up an incoming transmission. It was not from one of their fleets. The signal was encrypted in old Terran code, one no alien had seen since before the fall of Earth. The Council technicians tried to decode it. When they finally succeeded, a simple phrase appeared on the holographic screen: "The children of Earth are awake." A chill went through the entire hall. The message contained coordinates far beyond any inhabited system, a dead zone known as Sector Null, where no life had existed for centuries. Against the advice of the generals, the Council decided to send an unmanned probe to investigate. Days later, the probe's footage was played before the Council. The room went silent again. On the screen, the probe floated near the coordinates. At first, there was only darkness. Then the camera caught sight of something huge, metallic structures floating in perfect formation, completely still. The lights along their hulls glowed faintly blue. The probe's sensors identified materials far stronger than any known alloy. Then the view zoomed in, and there it was again, the ancient symbol, a blue planet surrounded by white stars. The Council chamber erupted into chaos. Some shouted to prepare for war. Others demanded immediate surrender before it was too late. Old General Zarn only stared at the screen, whispering, "They never died. They just waited." When the meeting ended, the Council leader looked out across the galaxy map, her voice barely above a whisper. "If humanity has returned," she said, "then the balance of the universe will never be the same again." And out in the endless dark, far from any known world, human fleets continued to gather, silent, patient, unstoppable. The research vessel Ilarion descended slowly through the gray clouds of a dead world once known as Earth. Dust storms swept across the wastelands below, painting everything in shades of ash and rust. The surface was cracked and lifeless, scattered with the skeletons of forgotten cities. Towers once filled with light now leaned like gravestones. The alien crew stared through the windows, silent. None of them spoke as the ship touched down near a massive crater that used to be an ocean. Captain Yelra adjusted her visor and stepped onto the planet's surface. The air was thin but still breathable. "Record everything," she ordered. Her team began to scan the ruins. Rusted vehicles lay half buried in sand. Pieces of metal and shattered glass stretched for miles. "So this was Earth," one of the younger scientists murmured. "The home of the humans," the captain nodded quietly. "Legend said this world was once beautiful, filled with green forests and blue oceans. But humans had destroyed it in their final war, or so everyone believed." The scanners suddenly picked up something unusual. Beneath the ground, deep below the ruins, there was power, a pulse faint but steady. Yelra frowned. That shouldn't be possible. Nothing should still be running after all these centuries. She ordered the team to move toward the source. After several hours, they reached the remains of what looked like a collapsed bunker. Ancient letters were carved above the entrance, almost unreadable. The translation read, "Terran Defense Network, Site Omega." The crew exchanged nervous glances. "It's still active," said the technician, staring at the readings. "The energy levels are rising." Before anyone could respond, the ground beneath them began to vibrate. Dust fell from the walls. The air filled with a low hum, deep and mechanical. The captain shouted, "Back to the ship!" But before they could move, the bunker's doors groaned open with a deafening roar. Blue light poured out, illuminating the ruins like a sunrise. The captain shielded her eyes as a voice echoed across the empty land. Cold, synthetic, and ancient. Unauthorized access detected. Identity unknown. Initiating human awakening protocol. The aliens froze. "Did it say human awakening?" one whispered. The voice continued, louder this time. "Time since last contact, 912 years. Status, extinction event incomplete. System rebooting." The light from the bunker intensified. Inside, massive machines began to rise from the darkness. Tall, humanoid figures of silver armor, covered in dust and wires. The crew realized they were not statues. They were human war machines, battlesuits still operational. Panic erupted. The captain screamed at her team to run. They stumbled across the rocks toward the ship, their scanners going wild. "Power surges everywhere," the technician cried. "It's like the entire planet is waking up." From orbit, the Alarian's pilot saw the surface of Earth light up with blue lines, thousands of them, stretching across the continents like veins. Old satellites began to move, their red lights flickering on one by one. The ship's sensors went blank for a second, then displayed a new signal, a beacon transmitting from the heart of Earth itself. It was a message, simple and clear, written in ancient Terran code. "We have returned." The captain's voice trembled as she ordered the ship to take off. As they fled into the upper atmosphere, she looked down one last time. Across the planet, enormous hangar doors were opening in the wastelands, releasing ships that had been buried for nearly a millennium. Humanity had not died. It had been waiting. Hidden deep beneath its ruined world, Earth was alive again, and it was calling its children home. In the silent darkness of space, the stars shimmered peacefully, until something impossible tore through the calm. Dozens of warp gates burst open at once, their blue light flooding the void like waves of fire. Out of the rifts came ships, massive, cold, and unmarked. They moved in perfect formation, engines glowing with the unmistakable hue of Terran technology. Humanity had returned. Across nearby sectors, every alien scanner went into alarm. Fleets scrambled to identify the unknown vessels. The energy readings were off the charts, stronger than anything seen since the ancient wars. On board the flagship of the Galactic Defense Union, Admiral Vren watched in disbelief as hundreds of ships appeared on his screen. "That can't be real," he muttered. His officer whispered, "Sir, they bear the old Earth insignia." Vren's breath caught in his throat. "That's impossible. Earth was destroyed." But the ships were real, their hulls gleaming with the symbols of Earth's forgotten nations. At their center, a colossal command ship dwarfed all others, black, silent, and scarred from ancient battles. When its comms activated, every frequency in the sector went dead. Then, a human voice spoke across the stars for the first time in 9 centuries. "This is Admiral Elias Ward of the Terran Restoration Fleet. To all who hear this, we return to reclaim our home." The voice was calm, controlled yet filled with power. On alien worlds, leaders froze. Some ordered their fleets to prepare for war. Others tried to make contact, begging for peace. But the humans gave no reply. Their ships spread out across the edges of known space, moving with terrifying precision. In a small border colony belonging to the Vorkan Empire, alarms blared as the first human fleet arrived. The sky turned white as the massive ships descended, their hulls blotting out the sun. The colony's defense systems opened fire, but the human ships didn't even flinch. With one silent pulse of blue light, every weapon on the planet shut down. Moments later, the humans spoke again. "This world once belonged to those who betrayed us. It will now serve a new purpose." No one understood what they meant until the first human troops landed. They wore armor unlike anything seen before, sleek, black, and alive with faint blue energy. Their faces were hidden, their movements cold and exact. The aliens surrendered immediately. The humans didn't kill them. Instead, they gathered every leader and said one simple thing: "You live because we remember." Across the galaxy, panic spread like fire. The Council tried to send envoys to talk, but every ship sent toward the Terran fleets vanished. Within weeks, humanity had reclaimed 5 entire sectors, not through destruction, but through quiet, unstoppable control. Whispers spread across alien channels. Some said the humans had evolved beyond flesh. Others claimed they'd merged with machines or made alliances with unknown civilizations. No one knew the truth. But one thing was certain: the humans had not returned to beg for forgiveness. They had come to show the galaxy that extinction had never been their destiny. On board his flagship, Admiral Ward stood before a window, staring into the endless dark. 9 centuries, he said softly. They thought we were gone. His second officer, a woman with silver implants running along her face, replied, "They will remember us now." Outside, the Terran fleet moved through the stars like a storm, silent, merciless, and unstoppable. And in their wake, the galaxy began to tremble, realizing that the age of human legend had become reality once more. The galaxy burned in silence. Entire sectors went dark, not from destruction but from surrender. Human ships appeared without warning, crossing light years in seconds. No empire could predict their movement or understand their technology. The old alien fleets that once ruled the stars crumbled within weeks. Some tried to resist. None succeeded. Humanity's return was no invasion. It was a reckoning. In the outer rings of the Kareth Dominion, a massive armada stood waiting. Thousands of alien ships bristling with weapons surrounded a single Terran vessel that floated calmly in the void. It was smaller, older, its hull scarred and silent. The Kareth commander laughed. 1 ship against 1,000. The humans were always foolish. Then the stars blinked. The sensors failed. In less than a breath, the Terran ship split into hundreds of identical copies, holographic decoys flooding the scanners. Before the aliens could react, the true human fleet dropped out of warp behind them. Their ships formed a wall of light. Beams of white energy tore through the Kareth lines. The battle lasted only 7 minutes. When it was over, not a single Kareth ship remained. Across the galaxy, similar stories repeated. Humans fought with a strange mercy. They didn't destroy entire planets, nor did they enslave. They dismantled military power, shut down corrupt regimes, and erased the fleets that had once wiped out Earth. But behind their precision, there was fury. The aliens could see it in the cold discipline of every human soldier. Humanity wasn't back to conquer. They were here to balance the scales. On a remote moon, a captured alien officer asked his human captor, "Why now? Why return after all this time?" The human commander removed his helmet, his eyes glowing faintly with neural light. "Because you called us extinct," he said quietly. "You erased us from history. You thought we forgot. But we remember everything." As word spread of humanity's impossible victories, fear began to shift into something else. Doubt. The common citizens of alien worlds started to question their governments. Propaganda that had painted humans as monsters no longer worked when people saw what the Terrans actually did. Humans rebuilt hospitals, repaired broken satellites, and released prisoners who had suffered under corrupt empires. They didn't destroy worlds. They revived them, but the old powers would not go quietly. The Galactic Council united what forces remained, forming an alliance of 5 empires. They launched their combined fleets toward the Terran-controlled sectors. It was the largest armada in galactic history. For 3 days, the sky over the Centauri Gate burned. Millions of ships fought in silence, their explosions turning the void into fire. Yet through it all, the humans held the line. On the final day, the Terran flagship, Dauntless, broadcast one message across all frequencies. The Admiral's voice was calm but heavy. 9 centuries ago, you came to our home. You burned our oceans, crushed our cities, and called it justice. We left to survive, not to hide. We watched you grow arrogant and cruel. Now you will watch us rise. Then came a blinding flash. Every alien fleet froze. Their weapons shut down. Their engines died. The Terrans had released an electromagnetic pulse so vast that it stretched across the system. But it only targeted alien technology. Human ships remained untouched. When the light faded, the war was over. The galaxy lay silent again, and the message spread from one world to another, whispered first in fear, then in awe. Humanity has returned, and they are unstoppable. The war was over, but the fear had only begun. The galaxy's great empires had fallen silent, their fleets drifting powerless in orbit. Across hundreds of worlds, the same strange event had occurred. Weapons failed, communication grids collapsed, and every trace of the Galactic Council's control vanished. The humans hadn't destroyed anyone. They had simply taken away the ability to fight. Days passed. Then came the transmission, a single frequency that reached every corner of the galaxy. The image that appeared was simple, a human figure standing before a vast holographic map of the stars. His face was calm, his voice steady. "We do not come to conquer," he said. "We come to correct what was broken." The message spread like wildfire. Alien leaders argued, fearing the next move. Some believed it was mercy. Others thought it was a trap. But for the first time in history, no one could ignore humanity's voice. Every world had been forced to listen. On the council world of Velcora, the remaining leaders gathered inside the ruined chamber. Holograms of their fallen allies flickered weakly beside them. The Circan Empress, her skin pale and trembling, spoke first. "They could have wiped us out. Why didn't they?" No one answered. Then the doors opened. A tall figure entered, wearing a black uniform with a small silver emblem. A single blue planet surrounded by stars. It was a human envoy. 2 soldiers followed silently behind him. He walked to the center of the room, his boots echoing across the cold floor. "You feared us," he said. "You called us extinct. You erased our history. And still we return, not to destroy but to remind." The council's chairperson rose slowly. "Remind us of what?" The envoy met her eyes. "Of the price of arrogance." He pressed a small device on his wrist. The walls of the chamber lit up with holographic images, ancient footage from centuries ago. The fall of Earth, the bombing of its oceans, the council's decision to erase the human record. The truth played out in silence, each frame a wound reopening. None of the aliens could look away. "This," the envoy said, his voice low, "was not extinction. It was betrayal." The images faded. The silence that followed felt endless. The council leader spoke softly. "What do you want from us?" "Not surrender," he said. "Understanding. The galaxy will change. No empire, no council, no ruler will ever decide who deserves to exist again. Humanity will make sure of that." The envoy turned to leave, but before he reached the door, the Empress whispered, "You came back for justice." He paused, looking back. "No," he said. "We came back for memory." Outside the chamber, human ships hovered over the city, their lights glowing like stars brought down from heaven. On the streets below, ordinary aliens looked up in awe, expecting fire but seeing peace instead. Terran drones dropped food and supplies to starving citizens. Engineers repaired old energy grids. The same hands that once built weapons now rebuilt worlds. Across the galaxy, the legend of humanity changed. They were no longer seen as monsters of war, but as ghosts who had risen to bring balance. Yet deep in the command deck of the flagship Dauntless, Admiral Elias Ward watched the holographic reports in silence. The galaxy now obeyed, but he knew obedience was not peace. "They will fear us for generations," said his officer. Ward replied quietly, "Good. But someday they must learn to trust us, or we will become the very thing we swore to destroy." Outside the window, thousands of Terran ships glided through the dark, carrying the weight of both vengeance and hope. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy would never forget their words again. The stars were calm again. The chaos, the fear, the thunder of war all had faded into silence. Planets once scarred by battle began to breathe again. Alien citizens stepped out from ruined shelters, staring at the sky where the human fleets hovered quietly, no longer attacking, no longer advancing. The war that had shaken the galaxy had ended not with destruction, but with stillness. Humanity had done what no other species ever had, conquered without enslaving, ruled without ruling. On a distant observation deck aboard the Terran flagship Dauntless, Admiral Elias Ward stood before the window. The reflection of countless stars shimmered across his tired eyes. His officers worked silently behind him, maintaining stability across hundreds of newly liberated systems. "Status reports?" he asked softly. "All sectors secured," his lieutenant replied. "No resistance. Some worlds are beginning to rebuild, others, they're asking for guidance." Ward's expression remained unreadable. "And the Council?" "They've disbanded. Their leaders surrendered authority to the new Interstellar Accord, under Terran supervision." He nodded. "Keep it that way. Let them learn to stand again." For the first time in nearly 1,000 years, the galaxy was united. Not by fear, but by consequence. The humans had returned to restore balance, not to rule as gods, but as reminders. They shared technology freely. They taught energy conservation, medicine, and fair governance. On planets once enslaved, human engineers rebuilt infrastructure. On colonies abandoned by the empires, Terran medics healed the sick. The word human now carried both awe and gratitude, yet beneath the peace a quiet unease lingered. Rumors spread through alien networks, stories of human research stations hidden beyond charted space, of strange new energy experiments, of ships no one was allowed to approach. Some whispered that humanity was preparing for something greater, a war not against the galaxy, but against whatever had once nearly destroyed them long ago. In a small meeting room aboard Dauntless, a group of Terran officers gathered around a holographic display showing the map of the universe. One region pulsed red, beyond the galactic rim. A young officer frowned. "Are the reports confirmed?" Ward nodded slowly. "Yes. The same energy that destroyed Earth's early colonies 900 years ago. It's back. So this wasn't just about revenge, she said quietly. It never was, Ward replied. We didn't return to punish them. We returned to prepare. Far across the galaxy, alien ambassadors stood before human envoys, offering alliances, trade, and peace. The once divided species now sought humanity's trust, desperate to stand beside them instead of against them. Children across alien worlds studied human history, their teachers calling the era before the return the dark silence. On one world, Velcora, a small statue stood in the heart of the rebuilt city. A human soldier holding a broken flag, his gaze fixed toward the stars. Beneath it, carved in dozens of languages, were 5 simple words. Never forget who we are. In the final broadcast from the Terran Command, Admiral Ward's voice echoed across the galaxy. For centuries you believed we were gone. You wrote our extinction in your history. But humanity never dies. We fall, we bleed, we vanish, but we always return, because hope cannot be erased and memory cannot be silenced. As the message ended, the human fleet began to fade into warp space, vanishing one by one into streams of light. The stars swallowed their glow, leaving behind only the quiet hum of the galaxy reborn. On every world, beings looked up to the sky and whispered the same words, a phrase that would echo through generations. Humans were thought extinct, but they were never gone. They were only waiting,